For me, it is about the law and people. That is not a legal defense, let me tell you. And how people can resolve and better themselves.
Justice with passion.
I knew I was going to go into law because I always defended everybody. I was always the one who found a solution and tried to resolve the problem by having people talk to each other.
Justice with truth.
So I'm giving you one more chance to tell me the truth.
This is Justice for All with Judge Cristina Perez. Brenda Metal is suing Anthony Warner in the amount of $4,500. Ms. Metal claims she repeatedly visited the wrong gravesite because of Mr. Warner's negligence. Mr. Warner claims the plaintiff's paperwork got mixed up, so he offered a free headstone, but he feels he doesn't owe anything else.
All rise. Court is now in session. The Honorable Judge Cristina Perez presiding. Please be seated. All parties have been sworn in, Your Honor.
Thank you, Bernard. Mrs. Mendel, I understand that your mother was buried at the defendant's funeral at the cemetery?
Correct. Good morning, Your Honor. Yes, my mother was only 64 years old. It was a sudden death. She died of a heart attack, so it was really hard for me to deal with that. Shortly after, I made arrangements to bury her at Warner Cemetery. When I was at the funeral, I noticed there was a new plot, a new area that only had 2 other headstones there. I mustered the guts to go back a year later because it was really difficult for me. When I did go back, it was completely surrounded with lots of other plots. So I had to make a special marking on the headstone so that I wouldn't get lost. I'd visit her for every holiday, Christmas, her birthday, just whenever I needed to go talk to her, which was quite frequently. Took her balloons, cards, I'd cry, pray. Thanks to my uncle Diego, he was in town, and he said he wanted to go visit my mother. He hadn't seen her since the funeral. It had been at least over a year. When I gave him the address, well, the following day he called me up. He was frantic, and I had to calm him down to find out what was happening. He said the address I gave him was not where my mother was buried.
What do you mean the address?
The cemetery, at the plot where the grave site where she was at. I gave him the specific area, and he couldn't find it. All the headstones have an address. So he went to the main office, and Tony came out and helped him look for it. Then he went back to the computer, and he realized there was a mistake with the paperwork, and one of his new employees had switched headstones with another gravesite.
Okay, so what happened, Mr. Warner?
Ma'am, first of all, I am sorry for both your losses of your mother. But, Your Honor, this has been a terrible mistake, and it's an honest mistake.
Okay, so what happened? Explain.
What happened was, whenever we inter a new client, we basically will put down a temporary head marker. It's usually made of plastic with that particular person's name on it. And we will leave that in place until the regular marker will come. Unfortunately, one of our new employees, after a couple of months, went out and he felt the urge, for whatever reasons, to remove the temporary marker, leaving this particular gravesite unmarked. So, unfortunately, we did not discover this until Mr. Acosta came into the office very upset that he could not find his sister's gravesite. So at that time, I went into my computer, looked at my particular files, also went into my hard copy files, and did a little bit of a comparison. And then the 2 of us walked back out to the gravesite area, and we looked around, and we found, after a search, that the particular headstone was 1 row off.
In her section, her marker wasn't on her area?
Her marker was 1 row off and 1 plot down.
Excuse me, Your Honor, I have a map here to clarify things.
Let me see. So essentially, her headstone was put on somebody else's gravesite.
That's correct. A terrible mistake, Your Honor.
Mrs. Metal, for the little bit less than a year when she was visiting her mom, wasn't really visiting her mom. She was visiting somebody else.
That's correct, Your Honor.
Okay.
And I understand. That's a terrible...
And was there a tombstone or a different marker on her mother's burial plot, the area? Did somebody else, so her mother's buried here. was there a tombstone of somebody else? Did they get switched?
The headstones, Your Honor.
Yes.
There's a difference between tombstones and yes, but
was there another headstone in her mother's area?
They had been inadvertently switched. It was just, fortunately, there was only two grave sites involved, so it was relatively easy to rectify the situation. And when I say easy, I don't mean that in a flippant manner. I'm just saying from a physical standpoint, both these markers were the same size. So if I may, these markers are about 24 by 16 inches, and they're made of granite. They're pre-drilled, and the bronze plaque is placed on that. And fortunately, both these were the same size. So when you go to place the markers, you dig out a marker, and you dig out a 24 by 16 section, I should say, dig that out, and then place the granite with the plaque on it. The easy fix, and again I say easy because it's physically easy, is to pick them up, move the one, and move the other. And that's basically what I offered the plaintiff, and she turned me down flat.
Your Honor, he said it would be a quick fix, and he wouldn't charge me to move the headstones.
Your Honor,
so did you switch the headstones?
I did.
Okay.
Well, because I wanted to make sure that the proper headstone was with the proper person. And so that's been done.
So then that's been fixed?
Yes, and it was at no charge. Because normally, when it comes to these things, you charge per square inch for the size of the marker. So that could have cost anywhere between $125 to $500, depending on the cemetery. Some private cemeteries will charge $500. We don't do that. We just went by the square inch, so it worked out about $140 or so. And we ate the cost on that.
Coming up on Justice for All.
He's lucky I'm not suing him for pain and suffering. That's what I should be doing.
I feel like I'm being gouged for an honest mistake.
And later.
And we've run into a few difficulties with prospective buyers because of the fact that Mr. Haynes lives there and he likes to walk around naked.
Closed captioning provided by. If you'll be in the Los Angeles area and want to bring your case to court, call 1-888-552-6878. You're watching Justice for All with Judge Cristina Perez. We're back with the case of Brenda Metal, who is suing Anthony Warner for $4,500.
Her tombstone is on her plot.
Correct, but because of his incompetent staff and employees, I already was undergoing a tremendous amount of mental duress, and then for this to happen, my tears have been rolling on the wrong grave for over a year. I've been placing balloons, cards, visiting my mother, talking to her at the wrong gravesite. You know how that makes me feel?
Yeah,
and for him to just say it's a quick fix, that just turns my stomach. So I went online to write a negative review. Lo and behold, here on Yelp, Tony is a crook. Run. He has 2 stars out of 5. They are complaining about a $2,600 casket that he sold people on, but it's actually worth $750. They're the cheapest ones that are not floodproof and airtight. So I do have a copy of this if you'd like to see this.
Your Honor, if I may clarify while you're waiting for this to come to you, the difference between a $750 casket and the $2,600 casket, by looking at the two of them sitting side by side, is not apparent. They look identical. The $750 casket, though, has a very thin veneer of bronze on top of it. And the body, where the body is, if you will, has a very thin veneer of mahogany on top of pine. The $2,600 casket has a ½ thick piece of bronze covering it, and it is solid mahogany.
So she originally paid for that casket.
She got the $2,600 casket. Now, some people seem to think that because they look identical, I pocketed the difference. I did not. She got her money's worth. He's
lucky I'm not suing him for pain and suffering. That's what I should be doing. I would like to be reimbursed for the casket, $2,600, the headstone, $1,600, the flowers and the balloons, at the least.
I've tried to do the right thing, and I feel like I'm being gouged for an honest mistake.
A mistake is not putting somebody else's tombstone on somebody else's plot. That's not a mistake.
Headstone, please.
The headstone, that's not a mistake. That's negligent. That's careless. That's reckless. I would be livid
Your Honor.
I would be livid.
Your Honor, if it
and
wasn't
what's the right thing to do? The right thing to do is for you to reimburse her for a full year of flowers. Yes, of course that's the right thing to do. As a business person, that is the right thing to do. 1 year free subscription to whatever florist you want, for whatever occasion you want. That's what I would do as a business owner. That's the right thing to do. But I'm not you. So I don't run your business, so I can't force you to do anything.
Your Honor,
now, Mrs. Meadow, honestly, what you have, you're asking back for the tombstone, the headstone, I'm sorry, for the casket, for the flowers and balloons. I can't have him reimburse you for something that is physically purchased. So based on that, I will deny the casket of $2,600. I will deny the expense of the headstone because it is there. You did purchase it. It is with your mother now. I will deny the balloons and the flowers.
You will?
Okay? I will. But what I will do is I will teach the defendant a lesson. Okay? And I will grant you something that's called punitive damages. And punitive damages are exactly that. They're punitive. They are designed to teach somebody a lesson, to make sure that you will never do this again. To make sure that you remember, oh my God, I did this to the Meadow family and I had to pay them $5,000 because I was careless, because I made a stupid little simple, because it was just a mistake. I will never do that again because I'm going to have to pay somebody $5,000 plus more if something else happened. So the $5,000 will remind him that he can never do this again. This was an egregious, an outrageous issue that you did. I can't even call it a mistake. Carelessness, more than carelessness.
Your Honor.
It's horrible. There's just no words to describe how I would feel if that happened to my mother.
Your Honor, I feel just as bad. I truly
I'm glad
do.
you feel just as bad, and you're going to make sure you let her know by feeling just as bad with the award of $5,000 that I'm granting to the plaintiff for punitive damages. Never do it again.
Judge Perez has ruled in favor of the plaintiff. The defendant has been ordered to pay $5,000.
I'm truly sorry for what happened, and it'll never happen again.
I accept your apology, and I hope this ruling is a reminder to never have to put anyone through the pain that I've been through.
Coming up on Justice for All.
And we've run into a few difficulties with prospective buyers because of the fact that Mr. Haynes lives there and he likes to walk around naked.
Closed captioning provided by. You're watching Justice for All with Judge Cristina Perez. Eleni Massey is suing Seth Haynes in the amount of $2,750. Ms. Massey claims her neighbor should be responsible for buying a privacy fence because he's always nude. Mr. Haynes claims he never exposes himself in public and only remains nude in his home, so he shouldn't have to pay.
Mr. Haynes, I understand you like to be naked.
Yes, I do, Your Honor.
Okay, and you, Miss Massey, his neighbor, do not like this.
That is correct.
Okay, so that's why we're here today. Miss Massey, tell me.
Well, I've lived in our home now for 7 years, and 3 years ago, Mr. Haynes moved in, and my children were playing in the backyard where they love to be, and they ran into the house terrified because they said there was a naked man in that backyard next door. So you know, I've had to contact the police on several occasions, and I'm here because I would like to put a privacy fence between the two properties.
Okay.
And I think that Mr. Haynes should have to pay for it because I have 2 young children, and we are currently trying to sell our house to get out of the neighborhood, and we've run into a few difficulties with prospective buyers because of the fact that Mr. Haynes lives there and he likes to walk around naked.
Why don't you build your own fence and pay for it?
We've never had this problem. We actually don't really like fences, but we feel that this has to be done, and if it wasn't...
So you feel that, in your eyes, he's the public nuisance, therefore he's responsible for this, so he should be responsible for the wall?
That is correct.
Okay, but it doesn't work that way. If it's your property, you don't like that he's walking around naked. I may not like seeing him walk around naked,
Right.
but it's his property, and it happens to be that in your state, he can do whatever he wants to do as long as it's within his own private property. He has a reasonable expectation of his property.
Well, I'm asking that he be discreet about it. I mean, he is aware that I have very young children.
Okay. Mr. Haynes, I understand this is not the only neighbor that's complained, according to the records and what you have submitted today, both of you. She has called the police how many times?
I believe it's 3 times, Your Honor.
3 times. And the other neighbors from the other side have called a few times as well.
I believe so, yeah.
And the neighbors have never charged you with public indecency or decent
No.
exposure because you're in the privacy of your own home.
Correct.
Okay.
Coming up,
I'm an art teacher. I pose for them. I don't want to pay for the model fees, so I do it myself. It just makes common sense.
Okay.
And it happens to be in my own backyard.
closed captioning provided by. You're watching Justice for All with Judge Cristina Perez. We're back with the case of Eleni Massey, who is suing Seth Haynes for $2,750.
Well,
Do you want to do anything about it?
The thing I would like to say is that I understand where they're coming from. I came from a very liberal household as a child. I grew up this way. This is the way I am. As far as I see, it's normal.
Okay.
I understand her concerns.
It is normal, right?
It
normal.
is. That's the way we were brought into the world. So
Amen.
I understand her concerns. I understand she has 2 small children. But I did make several efforts to, let her know these are when I'm going to be doing my activities, my gardening, my yoga, any other activities I do in the backyard. I let her know ahead of time, and I've tried to meet her in the middle.
Okay, that's good. Compromise.
Exactly.
So has he told you that? Hey, I'm going to be out from 12 to noon, from noon to 2 on Saturday, or early in the mornings from Monday through Friday from 6 to 7.
He has not. He just randomly told me that there will be events and I will continue doing what I want to do. And I've given him several notes and letters, and I actually just recently wrote him a letter, and I have it here.
Give Renard all your evidence, please.
And I recently gave him this letter, and I also have a picture of the property so that you can see it. There you go. And you can see the property. You can see the letter that I recently wrote him. This is one of many letters that I've given to him asking him to please stop. He's been posing naked in the backyard.
Your Honor, excuse me. I'm an art teacher.
You're an art teacher?
I'm an art teacher. I pose for my students. That's not unheard of. It's
the positions that he's
go
in
ahead,
are
go ahead,
very...
Mr. Haynes. Go ahead, Mr. Haynes.
So my point is, it's also not just the way I live my life. It's also the fact that it's part of my career. I'm an art teacher. I pose for them. I don't want to pay for the model fees, so I do it myself. It just makes common sense. And it happens to be in my own backyard.
Judge Perez's verdict when Justice for All returns. Promotional consideration provided by.
He's not killing anybody. Right. He's not committing a crime. He's not vulgar. He's not, excuse the word, he's not a pervert. He's not approaching your children. He's just living his life the way he wants to live it, and it just happens to be naked. I'm denying your claim. Good luck.
Judge Perez has ruled in favor of the defendant. The plaintiff's claim has been denied.
You heard the judge. If I'm on my property, I can do what I want. If you want the fence built, pay for it yourself.
Well, all I'm asking is that you have a little bit more respect for me and my children and cover up from the waist down.
This has been a production of Entertainment Studios.